Hi everyone, hope you're having a great day. I just wanted to send out another update video to show you some of the changes that I've been making over the last week to the site. The first thing I would like to look at and show you is some of the dialogues and the detail work I've been doing on those. That took up a lot of my time this last week was resizing and making the entire site responsive to make sure that it will work on phones, tablets, PCs, really any kind of screen size. So let me show you what we've done with that. I'm going to pull up the sponsor admin just to demonstrate this for you here. Now, I'm going to resize the screen here. You'll notice as I resize, the site will sort of shift and readjust itself and stack things on top of each other to make sure the whole thing is accessible. That was already part of it. The site was already doing that. But the problem that we ran into at the meeting was that the dialogues weren't being very friendly on the tablet, and they kept opening way too big or way too small, and we couldn't adjust them. So that was what I worked on a lot of this last week. So now, I'll show you this one. If I open up any of these, the dialog is going to open up centered in the middle of the screen, but it's going to be responsive to the size of the page. The dialog is also going to be responsive to the size of the content within it. So I don't know if you remember, but some of the ones before, they were gigantic, and there was a huge window for this dialog and only a little bit of text in it. So that's all fixed. Now they're all going to resize themselves appropriately to the right size. And in addition, when I make the screen smaller, the dialog is going to adjust itself too. It's not going to remain where it was. It's going to readjust itself to the middle and resize itself too. Basically, long story short, what this means is that this will be fine on tablets, phones, computers. You should be able to use any internet-connected device to be able to use the site now, and it should be okay, regardless of its screen size. One thing I also fixed is if you scroll down now, the dialog stays where it was. You can still click around and it won't close until you say OK, but now you can at least move around. It's nice when they're fixed to the middle of the screen, which is what I had before, but that was one of the major problems we had on the tablet. So we've removed that in order to keep the tablet functionality much better now. But like you can see now, that this is much, much easier to use, and all these dialogues now we're going to use the same kind of thing. There's another one we can open up here. Put the hotels one. So again, you can see it just resizes itself appropriately, and you can scroll down within it if you need to. So that was a big functional change this week. Another big change this week came to CK Editor, and let me show you how that works. Go back here. I know it's in the Items Manager, so we'll pull that up. So the first thing you'll notice, this is CK Editor here. It now is also responsive, so it's going to size itself appropriately to the size of the dialog, to the size of the site, to the size of the screen, all that stuff. So I worked out all the bugs for that and got it got it self-aligning itself right and adjusting its size. Another thing I did to it was I really scaled down the toolbar. I don't know if you remember, but before I made this fix, there were about 4 different lines on here, which is hundreds of buttons, and you don't need 90% of those. So I really stripped it down and just added some basic ones. And we can definitely add more later if you decide there's something you want. But if there's not, then we can totally just use this toolbar. It does all the basics, bold, italics, underline, it justifies, and all that stuff. And we'll go through a training session when we're ready to make the site live so that you know exactly how to use this editor. One really nice addition, though, that I did make to it this week was the ability to add images into this part. So if there's anything in the description where you need to add an image in for whatever reason, you can click this image button here. And again, we'll go through some training on this, but you go over to Upload, say Choose File, and we'll use this one here. And then we say Send to the server. And now that image is right in here. We can change it at all if we want to, so we can change the height or the width or anything. But otherwise, we just say OK. And now that image is in here, and we can drag it around and move it, and it's part of this content now. So if you ever need to do that now, this is part of the system now. You don't have to do anything extra to make that work. And if we save it, you'll see it comes up right in here with the rest of the description. All right, so those are two of the major things I worked on this site. So they weren't not necessarily the most exciting things, but they're very important for structural foundation for the site. And like I said, really it will make using the tablet much, much, much easier now because everything is going to size itself appropriately. You don't have to worry about that anymore. All right, another major change I made this week was I finalized or made functions to finalize the agreements. So let me pull this one up here. We'll go to existing agreements. All right, so now you'll see we actually do have finalized agreements down here, and we've added some additional functions to these as well. So we already had the email one. I believe I showed you that last week, but this will just allow you to email the agreement to the hotel or the sponsor. We already had the edit part, and that part still functions exactly the same as it was before. We still have the view part. That also functions exactly the same. You can view the hotel agreement, the sponsor agreement, or both together, and you can also view them without signatures, whichever option you choose. And we've added the ability to delete them. That was already there too, I believe. But if you just want to get rid of an agreement or you start one in error or whatever, just don't want to see it anymore, you can just delete it. Now, the two new fields that I've added up here, two new options, are a copy function and a finalize function. Let me show you the copy one first. This copy function, what it will basically do is it will let you copy information from the agreement record into the main hotel or sponsor record. So, for example, if you've had a hotel in your database for years and you haven't made any updates to it, and you go out and you sign a new agreement with them, and it turns out that they've got a new contact person, they've changed their checkout time, they've changed a bunch of their hours, so you go ahead and you make all these changes in the agreement and record all this information. Well, when you're done, it would be a huge pain to have to go to that hotel record and manually update all those values again. There's no point to doing that if we already have the data. So what this copy function does is it looks and it checks and compares, and it will compare the agreement record that you've been creating with the hotel record for the hotel that's part of this, and it will do the same for the sponsor on this side. We just don't have one attached to this agreement. But what it will do is it will compare all the fields, and if it finds any differences, it's going to put them in right into this part here so you can see. If they're the same, so if the hotel name is the same on both of them, the contact person is the same on both of them, they're not even going to show up here. So really, it's only going to show you information that differs between the two records. And then you can choose to update it if you want to, but you don't have to update all of it. So let's say, for example, it shows you right here the current value. So the current value for the hotel, all these fields are blank. And then these are all the ones from the agreement on this side here. So for example, let's say that we wanted to update everything except for the checkout time. We want to leave it blank for whatever reason. We can check all of these, or we can check none. We can check all, and then we can uncheck this one. Now, what that's going to tell the system to do when you click Update is it's going to say update all of the fields that are checked, but skip this one here because I didn't check it. So if we click Update on this one, it's going to take us back out to the main page. But if we look here again, you'll see that the only field left now is checkout time because everything else is in agreement now because we updated it. So basically what this will let you do is easily move data back and forth between agreements and hotels and back and forth that way. Additionally, when I made this copy function, I also made a change when you add a hotel to an agreement to copy all of this information from the hotel record into the agreement record if it exists. And I added all those additional fields for times and checkout and everything. I added those all to the main hotel record also. So that's just additional information that we can collect about the hotel now. All right, so that's the copy function. The finalize function is also right here. You can finalize an agreement at any stage. You don't have to have a sponsor. You don't have to have a hotel. As long as you want to click it and finalize it, you can do that. So what this is going to do, if I click this, it's going to make sure and ask me if I want to finalize it, and I just say finalize. It takes me back to the copy function in case I want to copy anything right before I finalize it. And then I can say update. And then it takes me back to the main page, and you'll see here the one I was working on, the Brookwood Inn, is now finalized. Really, when I finalize it, it does two things. It changes the overall status from in progress to finalized, which really is just a marker that we can look for. So if you want to run a report later that says, show me only finalized agreements or show me only in progress agreements, that marker will let you do that. In addition, if there is a hotel and a sponsor on the agreement, it's going to check between the two of them and see if a join record creates, or I'm sorry, it's going to check between the two and see if a join record exists between the two of them. So it wants to make sure and see if this hotel is already attached to this sponsor. If it is, great, it moves on and continues to do its thing. If it's not, then it's going to create a brand new join record for you and then just move on to the next part. Really what that means, because I know I'm in a lot of programmer talk here, what that means is that that hotel and that sponsor are now going to be linked together, and you can do a bunch of things like add them to contracts or add their information on the sponsor page or anything like that. But it's going to create that join between the two of them so that you know that they're together. So we'll do that automatically for you. So that's just one less step when you finalize the agreement that you have to take care of by yourself. All right, I believe that's it with the agreements for right now. So let me show you a couple other functions that I've worked on this week. Let's pull up the message admin first. I made a few changes here. First thing you'll notice on this page, if the message has been unsent, so if we have not sent the message yet, you have the option to delete it. If it has been sent, I remove that because you want to keep a record of it still. If it has been sent, you want to know who it was sent to and all that information. So we're going to keep that information. But if it hasn't been sent yet, you can just easily click here and say delete, and it'll get rid of this for you. So that'll just make life easier to keep this cleaner a little bit. Now, if we view a message, Previously, I had the attachments added on here, but the only option for the attachments was to upload something new. Well, you may email the same file to people multiple times, or to different people, or over the course of time, and have, and don't want to upload that every single time. So I've accounted for that now. So now when we say add attachment, now you pick. You say new file or existing file. If I say new file, it's going to close that, and it's going to bring back up the upload thing. So this works exactly the same as it did before. I can just upload whatever file I had. So we say finished. But if I choose existing file, it's going to give me a list of the files that are already in the database right here. And so I can just say select file, and it's going to add it right here. Let's refresh this. And you see it right here. So now this is added to the email. So basically, again, that lets you reuse files without having to re-upload them over and over again. So that should make life easier too for you. Let's see. We have also got, let's look at the hotels again. I made some other changes to them. We'll just view this one. Okay, so a couple changes I want to point out on the hotel pages. We already had this part up at the top here, but I added a sponsorship history section. So we see their current sponsor, but if I want to view all of the sponsors that have ever had this hotel, I can click that button. It's going to bring this box up. Now, this one has only ever had the one that it's got now, but as you start building up a history of these, or if we have legacy data, you'll see, their previous sponsors and what the effective and the expiration dates were. So you'll be able to really quickly look at a hotel and see who has sponsored that hotel in the past before. In addition, we had this current contract information down here at the bottom, but I've also added a view contract history button. So if I click that, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to bring up just a quick overview of any contracts that this hotel has ever been part of. So as we add it to more and more, that history is going to show up here, and we'll be able to view the information about it, and even just click and view the actual contract if we want to, just like this. All right, so that's the agreements part. Another thing that I did is I fixed up the file section on these hotel and sponsor pages actually too. Previously, I only had the ability, we had them on here where you could view all the files that they had uploaded to it, and we could click here and we could add new ones, but there was no real way to manage them, to edit them, delete them, anything like that. So I've added that ability now. So when we click Files now, we get a little different page. We can add a new file by clicking this button, and it's going to show us any of the files that have already been added down here. So let's add a new one real quick just so I can demonstrate this. And we'll just add this one. We'll say start. Okay, now you'll see it's already updated that, so now it knows that this file is part of this hotel. Now we can click and we can view it if we want to. We can click and we can edit it. So if we want to change the name to something else, so new name and description. So you can add names and descriptions to these ones, and you'll see it updates it here. The one nice thing that it does, though, is it doesn't change the path to the file. So if you're already giving somebody a link to this file, it doesn't change the link to the file at all. So you don't ever have to worry about renaming them. It's going to keep that static. And then finally, if you want to, you can delete these files. So if you no longer want this file to be attached to the hotel, you can click delete, and we can just get rid of it right there. One other nice thing that I did with the files is if you export a hotel contract or an agreement, same thing for sponsors as well, it's going to add those to the file database for that hotel or sponsor respectively. So, if I email, a contract out to a sponsor, when I come back in later and look at their files, I'll see that contract in their files. It's not going to update automatically. It's going to be the version of it that I sent on that day. So if there's ever any disagreement where, well, your file that you sent me this day says this, you can look back and you can see exactly what it looked like because it saved a copy of that locally. So that's the files part that I've changed. One other thing, I think I did this last week, but I didn't show you. I'll just point this out now. With users, previously, we had this on here where we could attach users to hotels, but you had to make the user ahead of time. And I realized that could be a little bit clunky, and it might be easier sometimes just to make users directly to the hotel and sponsor. So that's exactly what I've done. So now when we click Add New User, you can still select one from the list if they qualify. So if this is a hotel user type, we can pick from these people still. But if they're not added yet, we can just say Add New User directly there. And we'll just add in some junk data right here. Generate them a username and say continue. And now that person is they've been added to the user database and they've been tied directly to the hotel. So basically it cuts out a step for you in case you had to do that before. So it's much, much, much easier to add users to the hotels. And I remember at one point you were asking me about sending emails to the hotel and the general manager and the contact person and all that stuff. What I've done is that the message editor now, it will send out, when you send to a hotel, it will send to the hotel's email address, the general manager's email address, and the contact person's email address. That's all by default. So if you had an example or a case where you wanted to email this out, but you only wanted the general manager to receive it, you could easily add them as a user to the hotel with their email address. And then instead of putting the hotel on, you add the user on there. And we'll go through all of this too when we go through training. But basically, the thing to keep in mind is I've added options to where you can either email everyone from the hotel or just target people from the hotel, and add new users that can come on and do different things that you'd want them to do. All right, so that's how the users work. One final thing on the hotel pages before we move on. I said before I added those fields, but I just want to show you where they are now. So this was the basic edit page before. Pretty much from this checkout time down to the notes area, these are all new ones that I've added based on things that were in the agreement. So this information is all information that is captured in the hotel side of the agreement. So I figured why not, let's just keep it in the hotel database too. So this will let us keep track of this information. It will let us copy it from the agreement into this one. It will let us copy it from the hotel record into an agreement when we start one. So it should be a whole lot of more data flexibility for you guys. And if we have any more common fields like that, just let me know and we'll add them too. It's really easy to add data fields like this now. All right. Oh, and I also added non-smoking rooms down here at the bottom too, in addition to room counts. All right, I think that's it for the hotels for now. Let me go back and show you some of the things we've added to the sponsors. Sponsor admin. All right. I don't think we've added anything to this page recently. Oh, no, we have. I take it back. I added an agreements part, just like for the other one. So we have the agreements right here. I didn't add the contracts because we have the main contracts page right here, so that would have been a little redundant. So this is where all the contracts are going to still be located. But you can quickly view their agreements on their main page also. Now, on the contracts, I did make a couple more changes. You told me that you need to be able to view the agreements while you're setting up a contract, but that the information doesn't necessarily always remain the same. So I wanted to set up something where it'd be easier for you to have access to this, but you weren't limited or you weren't forced to have any information from that agreement in here. So every contract now, when you go to the editor page, we'll have this view agreements part, and this will just pull up any agreements that the sponsor has been part of. And it'll have a view link on here. There's no agreements for the sponsor, but if there were, it would have a view link so you could quickly and easily view a PDF of the agreement. In addition, when you add new hotels now to the contract, there's this little handshake icon that comes up, and this is for agreements also. So by clicking there, you can see any agreements that the hotel has been part of. So you can see that we did make an agreement for this hotel. It does not have a sponsor. It's marked as completed, and we can view it if we want to. So this is the completed agreement, and actually I think this is the one that we completed before. So now you can quickly and easily have access to these agreements while you're setting up contracts. So that should make life easier in that way. So you have access to all of these ones when you start adding things. All right. Let me think. Trying to see if there's anything else here that I didn't touch on yet. All right, I believe that's it for now. If you have any other questions, please just let me know. I'm going to continue working on stuff this week. Mainly, I really want to get started on the reporting section and get that all set up and finalized so we can start really getting some good reports out of the system. But that's mainly what I'm going to be working on this week. If you have any questions about this or anything else that I've shown you or you want to provide any feedback, please just let me know. I'm happy to help or answer questions or anything. All right, well, have a great rest of the day, and I will send you another update probably at the end of this week as we get more things finished. Thanks, guys. Bye.